I will throw the link to the YouTube stream in chat as usual. This is our final workshop of the workshop marathon. Super excited for this. This is one session that I have been looking forward to since kind of learning about the topic and whatnot. I guess about a week ago now. So I think this is definitely one that should be pretty valuable, especially when it comes to working with account abstraction and stuff like that. But first and foremost, before we dive too deep into that, I do want to ensure that we have all the links good to go here. So let me open up the live stream, make sure the audio is working. 1 second, then I'll throw that link into the chat. But for those in here, kind of as people start filing in, again, if anybody in here has the verified developer role, then stick around, as later I will be kind of collecting everybody in here that is a verified developer and attended this session as well as some of the previous sessions. But here is the link to the YouTube live stream. We have everything else now on this YouTube channel. So if you guys actually head over to that channel link and then go to the live tab, you can see our past few sessions. So far, we've done sessions with Biconomy, Tycho, and ZetaChain, and then of course one on Particle back a few days ago. And all of which have been fantastic sessions so far. I've had a lot of fun in each of these. Some really cool topics covered, especially over the kind of idea of omni-chain, smart contracts, stuff like that, like we covered with ZetaChain, and the idea of scaling and remaining decentralized with Tycho. Of course, with Biconomy, we dove into modular smart accounts a little bit, and with their session validation modules. Then now we're, of course, kind of ending off here with Alchemy, diving into their AA SDK, as well as an overview of ERC 437 account abstraction. So a pretty cool session. I'm quite excited for it. But basically, to kind of give you guys some initial context before we kick it off here, for those that, if this is your first time hopping in here, and also while we're waiting for some of the others to hop in here that usually join us for these different sessions. If it's your first time, then basically what we're doing here is this week we're running about 5 workshops in total. This is, of course, like I mentioned, the last one of those, each of which are kind of meant to contribute to this overall idea of how do you build a next generation application in Web3? How do you build something that feels adjacent to Web3 or to Web2 applications, that kind of crafts this next generation of user experience? How do we get to that point in Web3? And how do you build applications that can meet that need, that can actually onboard this idea of the next billion users? The infrastructure is there. There's a lot of great projects that exist today that are building really cool things that can get you to that point where you can really build applications that can actually capture real value and bring in real users to the space. It's just a matter of kind of discovering and finding what the kind of these infrastructural components are, which is exactly the point of this workshop marathon. And so far we've covered everything from interchain, omnichain interoperability, kind of layer 2 scaling solutions, account abstraction on kind of a deeper level when it comes to session keys and modules and whatnot. And of course, we're kind of continuing that now with Alchemy. But I will give it another 2 or 3 minutes here, and then we will kind of kick it off here with Dan. But I want to give everybody a chance to hop in. Usually we have around 20-30 people in here, so we'll give everybody a chance to do that. And we have the announcement here in the developer announcements channel, so hop into there. And like I mentioned a moment ago, if anybody in here has the verified developer role, then in about 10 minutes or so, 20 minutes, I will be kind of tallying everybody that joined with that role. And if you joined any of the previous workshops, or if you joined all of the previous workshops, then we will be kind of dropping some ally, which is of course the inscription of the recent campaign that we ran. But I think we should be ready to go and kick it off in just one moment. The one thing that I do want to note real quickly is that on the particle side, especially those that are here interested in the People's Alliance or any of the other things that we're building, keep an eye on our socials over the next 7 days. We have a lot coming out, especially in regards to developer experience. We're about to launch brand new documentation. We've been revamping everything over the past 5 or 6 months, and it's now launching really next week. So pumped for that. It's been a long time in the making. So that is happening next week. We're also going to be doing some pretty cool announcements and chatting about the People's Alliance and some of the things that we've been working on with that next week as well. So a lot of really cool things happening over the next 7 or so days. So definitely keep your eyes peeled. If you haven't yet, go to the roles channel here in Discord, grab the tweets role, grab the developer announcements role, and kind of everything else that you want to be notified for, because we do have some pretty cool things that we usually announce first in Discord and then later on other platforms. But I think I will go ahead and pull Dan up here while we are still kind of kicking everything off, and then make sure we get the audio working. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, I can hear you. How's it going?
I am doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Perfect. Let me actually give you the administrator role here, so you can kind of have permission to do everything.
Oh, sweet.
One moment. Because by default, for some reason on Discord, you can't screen share or do anything like that.
Yeah.
So there you go. You have admin now. Let me do one more quick. Perfect. Awesome. Let me do one more quick ping here. And then I think we should be good to go in just one moment. Perfect. Or maybe before we kind of dive into the topic that we're going to cover today, we've been, I guess at Particle, one of our probably longer standing AA related partners has been Alchemy. And for good reason, of course. I actually remember this was probably back maybe 4 or 5 months ago now. I went down to your offices in New York. I met Will there, your like AA product manager, and a few of your other guys, and it was really cool. And we talked kind of about the overlap between kind of what you guys are building in the AA space and what we were building. And since then, a lot has happened in terms of kind of the overlap between Particle and Alchemy. Now, just recently, over the past 30 days or so, we implemented native compatibility with Light Account within our Smart Walls of Service. So developers can basically spin up Light Account deployments directly within our SDK. And we have an AA signers module within your account kit. We have, of course, native signer compatibility with just the general AA SDK in general. So this is something that I've been really excited about. We've produced, I think at this point, 2 or 3 videos covering account kit. And even like a big written tutorial that will go live pretty soon. So I think we've been really excited about kind of the sort of cross collaborations that we've had here, and of course it's been really cool to see Alchemy's success in the AA space. But I guess maybe to start, for everybody in the audience that's here on Discord and watching YouTube live and watching back in the recording, maybe could you give a quick intro into number one, of course, your role at Alchemy, kind of how you got into Alchemy and stuff like that, and also maybe what Alchemy is and kind of the core services that you guys provide?
Yeah, absolutely. So for myself, oh, and thank you for all that introduction. Super excited about the Light account integration and also modular account when it comes out as well. We're super excited for all of that. Yeah, so a little about myself. Before joining Alchemy, I was running ChainShot, which is a Ethereum developer bootcamp. We graduated about 200 students over the course of 2 years of running the bootcamp live. And then Alchemy acquired ChainShot, and we took the resources that we created within ChainShot and we made them free and available on something called Alchemy University. So if you are, wanting to learn some JavaScript, Ethereum, crypto, Solidity, any of that stuff, definitely jump into Alchemy University. We have some great resources there for you. I'm very passionate about just like education in general. I love the idea of being able to teach developers. I have this like running theory that I have a hard time conceptualizing things, and because of that, I know how to sort of bridge the gap between your understanding and where I'm at. So if I can understand it, I feel like you can understand it. And so therefore, I like making that sort of content where I can sort of show you how I understood something and then like be able to get you to that same point. So account abstraction is a little bit of that for me because I'm just joining the team very recently, putting out a lot of education and learning about this stuff myself. So it's really exciting to be on the cutting edge, and everything that you were saying as well. Tabasco, I don't. that's all I know you as, but Tabasco, everything that you were saying before about onboarding the next billion users, and I really think that bringing the UX barrier down, and with all these transaction fees getting cheaper and cheaper with new data availability chains and everything that we're seeing now, I'm just really excited. I think this is going to be a great opportunity for all the Web3 use cases that we thought we were going to see like 5 years ago start to proliferate and show up today. So that's a little bit about myself. A little bit more about Alchemy is Traditionally, Alchemy has been a very stable, reliable RPC provider for quite some time now. So like you can go to Alchemy and be able to use the RPC to be able to use our APIs whenever you're building a web application in Web3. We have our Supernode infrastructure, which is super, super reliable and super, super fast. Additionally, recently we've been getting into account abstraction, so there's a whole bunch of things that we have to offer here. And like Tabasco mentioned, we're doing a lot of integrations with a lot of teams across the industry, building out some cool stuff like the light account, the account kit, and modular account, which is coming soon. So I'll be introducing all those components as we go through here. Yeah, that's a good question. So we're at the end of January now. Was it in November, October? Like I said, so I'm a little bit new to the account abstraction team, actually just like this quarter. So been learning some of this stuff as well. But yeah, so the date is not something that's ironed in my brain, but I think you are correct on the time frame. It's like 2 to 3 months. Oh, sorry. So I meant new to the account abstraction side of things. So, we've been doing Alchemy University for about a year and a half, and very recently just started to work on some more of the products in the team rather than just Web3 education more generally. So that's why the date isn't like iron into my brain. But no, I've been in Alchemy for a year and a half now. Um, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't want to assume any knowledge today other than just general Web3 understanding. I'm going to be showing you ERC 4337 and especially how we're going to be setting it up with this particular project here. What more specifically we're going to be taking a look at is I have a very basic game. You're going to see it's written 100 lines of JavaScript code, but it's a very basic web canvas game. And what I want to show you is how you would connect that web canvas game to actually minting NFTs. So I have a little character that runs around, he's collecting shrimps, and then those shrimps are actually going to, with account abstraction through Tabasco's sign, sorry, through Particle Network Signer, and then through Alchemy's account kit, we're going to be able to mint those shrimps on the blockchain side as the character is collecting them on the screen. So it'll be just a little fun demo. I wanted to keep the code super, super simple so that you guys can pull the repo down. You can play around with it. If you have some experience or interest in games, maybe you could add some features to it, actually make it a fun game. That would be sweet. This is one of the use cases that I've been most excited about is Web3 games. I think everyone's doing it wrong. That's something I could talk everyone's head off of. I think that there's a lot to be unlocked in the Web3 space for gaming, and I think maybe too often we're thinking about it in terms of like speculation and gambling, but I think there's a lot more that could be done there with like community-owned games and worlds and resources. I think that's really exciting to me. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do is first I'm just going to show you guys why we're here, what's exciting about account abstraction, especially in its intersection with games, and then I'm going to do a quick presentation. So yeah, I can go ahead and jump into that. Anything want to cover before we go in there? Awesome. All right, sweet. Let's go ahead and jump in. So it's been a little while since I shared screen in Discord, and I still remember how to do it. There we go. All right, sweet. Cool. So like I said, the second part of this is going to be a presentation. So this is the presentation here. I'm going to come back to this in just a moment. But what I want to focus on first is just a very basic game I have here. Somebody put up some resources for a game. I put the link here in case you want to find these assets. They're free assets. So I thought that was pretty cool that somebody put them up there. So I put them in the link in case you want to find that on the GitHub repository. So I use these. I'm using something that may be a little bit old school, but it's something called Parcel. I didn't want to use React or anything that's going to make this application any more complicated than it needs to be. So Parcel is just going to make it really easy for me to just spin up a HTML page with a basic web server running. So I'm just going to go ahead and do npx parcel source / index.html. I'm going to show you guys first what I have here built and then where I want it to go because we're going to do this together here on the stream. So let me go ahead and pull that up. Localhost 1234. And this is the best person in Web3 right here, so make sure you follow him. I guess I'm on your page there, Tabasco. So I'll come over here to localhost 1234. So this is the game. Yeah, really, really simple. There's just a little guy. Like I said, I found this asset pack online. Really simple. He's just running around and he's collecting shrimps. So that's what he does right now. If you guys want, you could definitely add some more features to this. What I'm going to be adding while we're on stream right now is the ability for these shrimps to actually be turned into NFTs that are getting minted to your smart account on chain. So we're going to show how simple that is to do something like that, which I think is really, really cool. So we want to actually collect these shrimps and have them show up on the back end. So let's do that. So really quick, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of everything that's in this repository. Sorry if I sound a little congested, just getting over something. So I apologize if the audio sounds a little off, but this index.html here, we just have very basic canvas set up. Have that login button, which we're going to use in a moment, which is going to log us in through social login and using Particle Network Signer so that we can actually sign a user operation through the account kit and send that over to Alchemy's bundler and get that mined on chain. So we have this login button, and then we're going to showcase what the address is for the smart contract address. That's basically it in my HTML. Everything else is assets, like I said, from that free asset pack, which is pretty cool. We have this index.js here, which is really all the code for the game. I wanted to keep this super, super simple. So like if you, enjoy games or you're excited about like messing around with one, feel free to just dive in here and play around with it. There's some basic collision detection and, just moving the character around. It's only like 100 lines of code. So very, very basic game. We have this login code. Now this is the part that I'm going to go through in the slides. So I promise you we'll take a look at this a little bit more in depth. But here what we have is, you guys are probably pretty familiar with this being in the Particle Network Discord. You've probably seen this code before, but we are setting up a particle auth here. And I'm going to go out and get my particle environmental variables in just a moment because I don't have them set up there. I just wanted to show you pulling those over. And then the other thing that we're doing from there, once we have the particle auth set up, is I'm just connecting it through with some of the Alchemy tools that we'll go over. We need to configure an Alchemy provider. This is going to be an EIP 1193 provider, if you're familiar with that EIP. This is also going to extend that traditional provider with some of the additional things that we need for account abstraction, some of these additional endpoints to be able to send a user operation through to the bundler on Alchemy side. And then we mentioned this idea of a light smart contract account. Right now, this is what we offer in our account kit at Alchemy. We have a light smart contract account. It's a very basic smart contract account. Very soon, we'll be releasing the modular smart contract account where you could start to install plugins. So if you're a Solidity developer and you're interested in creation of plugins, you could definitely get involved and start creating some really cool plugins. There's so many ideas out there for what these plugins can be. If you're somebody who tends to be more on the front end, take a look out for what these plugins are going to be. I think they're going to unlock brand new user experiences for you. But for now, we have this light account, and we're connecting it through to the signer, to Particle Signer over here. And then finally, we are using the Alchemy Gas Manager, where I'm going to show you I have a policy set up that's going to just pay for the gas on behalf of my smart account here. So that's basically it. And then I just show the smart contract address on the HTML page. I'm doing some really old school document object model methods here with hiding some of the elements on the page and just there because I didn't want to involve React. And then I'm just passing the provider through so we can use it in our function. So what I'm going to do here is I have this function mint, and mint is getting called inside of our game whenever there's a collision. So it's going to check if there's a collision, then it's going to play that little sound effect, which I think maybe you heard if Discord's working properly with sending the sound effect through. And then we're going to call mint. Right now it's not doing anything, and then it spawns another shrimp in like a random location, right? So mint is not doing anything, but this is our opportunity to actually do something cool. So what I want to do in mint is I want to mint ourselves a shrimp NFT. This is where we're going to do it, right? And what I'm going to use is that provider that we have from the other file, right? So I'm just going to import get provider from my login file. I'm going to show you how easy this is once you have everything configured to actually just be able to use this like you would any other library, right? And just be able to send some data through and mint this shrimp NFT. So we have this get provider method here. What I do need to do is I do need to create an NFT. I don't have this NFT out on chain yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to go and deploy the NFT contract itself. So let's go do that first. So first step here is I'm going to create a new terminal. Maybe I'll split this. Move. Oh, no. Sorry. I'm getting a new terminal. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to create a contracts repository. I'm a big fan of Hardhat, although recently I'm really starting to love Foundry as well. So in this case, for anything that I write scripts, I still love to use Hardhat. Just a JavaScript developer at heart. So I'm just going to go ahead and do some Hardhat stuff here where I'm going to create a new package JSON. I'm going to install some Hardhat, and I'm going to go ahead and run a new repository for Hardhat there where we can create our NFT, deploy it on chain. I'm going to deploy it to Polygon Mumbai, and that's where we are going to be interacting with it with our smart account. So let's go ahead and stop stalling. Hopefully you can't spell installing without stalling, right? Which is what I'm doing, stalling. All right, sweet. So npx hardhat. I think I need to say init now, but maybe not. I'm going to create a JavaScript project. Sweet. All right, cool. So now we have our contracts. They gave me like a lock contract. What I want to go do is I want to go get Open Zeppelin's ERC 721. You know, with all these shrimps running around on the screen, it might make more sense to do an 1155. But let's keep it basic, right? We're just go get Open Zeppelin ERC 721. Just going to pull up their little tutorial here. That's going to give me that. Where would we be without Open Zeppelin, right? Ooh, you know what always sucks is when you come in here from Google, it always comes in at 2x. You want to go to 5x, right? That's what I'm going to install it at. I got to come here. I got to copy this. And then I'm going to go ahead and install Open Zeppelin contracts. If you guys aren't familiar with Hard Hat and just the JavaScript ecosystem in general, what's cool is you could just install the contracts and they install inside of this thing called the node modules here, where we can just go ahead and import them into our Solidity files. So we can go ahead and do that here. I'm going to replace all this with my game item. This is going to be our shrimp, and our shrimp, we'll name it shrimp. It's going to be SRH. We're going to be keeping pretty much everything the same, except I'm just going to call this mint and just let anyone call this. And anytime it mints, I'm just going to mint it to the message sender instead of actually passing in an address. And then for the token URI, let's just, yeah, I don't know if they actually have something up here. That does not look like a real JSON file. I'm not going to get the image up there for now. I don't want to go putting a JSON somewhere and then actually getting it down. So we're not going to have an image for the shrimp for the NFT. I just want to show you it minting. So we're going to go ahead and deploy this thing to the chain, to Mumbai. So what I need to do is I need to go ahead and set up my networks. URL is going to be, I need to go get myself an Alchemy API key. And then I'm going to create just a random private key. So this is the part that we're going to go over a little bit in the presentation. Something that's really interesting about account abstraction is you end up with two keys, right? One key is just a signing key. The other key is going to end up being your, maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself, because in this case, the private key is just going to be the private key that's deploying the NFT. So let me just go ahead and get that private key. I think it's going to be accounts that I need to plug in here. So let's go over to Alchemy, pull up this, get my API key, and I will put this over in the URL. Obviously, if I were going to put this out on GitHub, I'd want to, get rid of the API key there and put it in my .env. And then we have accounts here. What I'm going to do for this is, let's just get a random private key, because you guys are going to see it. And I just want to be able to, so let's just do this. Node require crypto. We're going to do random 32 bytes. And, random bytes. 32. And then 2-string hex. And we'll have ourselves a private key. And then, like I said, you don't actually want to put this stuff in here. You want to put it in a .env, keep it safe. But, for me, for now, I'm just going to put it in there because I don't care. It's just an account that I'm just creating here, right? I think I also have ethers available to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a wallet so it can translate this private key over to a address for me, so I can go get some Mumbai testnet ether and or testnet the Polygon native token. So then we Matic, and so we'll go ahead and say require ethers wallet. This is going to be const wallet is equal to ethers wallet, and then we'll just go ahead and say new wallet, pass in the private key. This is going to give us our address. So that's where we need to send our testnet funds to. So let's go over to the Mumbai testnet faucet, and here it is over here. I think they require that I'm connected to their Discord, which I do believe I am. So hopefully that should just be simple enough. Yeah, you guys can do what you need to do. And then I should be able to get some testnet Matic. And then I will put my address in there, go ahead and submit it, get my Mumbai 2 Matic, 0.2 Matic. And we should have it there now. So let me just go to the Mumbai Polyscan, just make sure that we have what we think we have in there. And hopefully that'll come over momentarily. They say it's on the way, so All right, cool. So we're going to go ahead and deploy this shrimp. So the shrimp is going to be shrimp.sol. And to deploy it, I just need to change my deploy script ever so slightly, get rid of these constructor arguments and all these comments. And we'll learn where it's getting deployed to, because we're going to need to interact with that through our user operation in just a moment. So let's go ahead and deploy the contract. It's going to be deployed to this target here. We'll go ahead and plug all that in. And sweet. So if I have my testnet-matic now, which I do, I should be able to deploy this to Mumbai. All right, so let's do it. npx hardhat run script/deploy.js, and my network flag is going to be whatever I named it. Whoa, I didn't name it. Okay, so that is not valid hardhat config. I think I need to do networks Mumbai like this. So I need to name it Mumbai. Make sure I save that. Mumbai. Oh, can't be deployed because, oh, it's mad about the version pragma. So it seems like 8.2, it's not happy with Solidity version in these files doesn't match the compile. Oh, okay. My compiler in the config. I'm off by a patch version or a minor version, right? There we go. So let's go ahead and put that in there. Okay, and now it's mad about something that I copied over from. Okay, so I think because they did this, I did not get that ERC 721 there, so I just need to get rid of that. All right. It's always the problem with doing this stuff live, right? You run into all the issues, but hopefully that should deploy there now, and we should have ourselves a contract. Once we have a contract, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here to Mint, and this is where we're going to do the fun stuff. Well, actually first, before we do that, yeah, I'm really stalling again now, but I think that is going to deploy perfectly fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some of these app ID stuff. So we need 5 things, 3 things from Particle, 2 things from Alchemy. I'm going to go ahead and grab those. So if you guys aren't familiar with these dashboards, we can get the project ID from Particle here. So there's my project ID. I'm going to delete these after, so you can't use these on the live stream. That's always the danger of doing these things on the live stream, right? So we got the client key, and then we have our app ID, and then we need an Alchemy key, and then we need a policy ID. All right, so there's my Alchemy key. And then we need our policy ID from the gas manager. So the gas manager is going to be the thing that's actually going to handle paying for our users. This is the paymaster that is going to pay the gas over here. So we need a policy to direct it to. This is what the gas manager is configured to. There, our contract is finally deployed. So the stalling worked, and we're going to go back over to Mint. And now we have our contract address. So this is going to be our shrimp address. And what we're going to do in Mint is we have this provider. It's really, really simple. So what we have to do is we have to say const provider is going to be get provider. This is going to be synchronous, so we don't have to make this async, but I do think we're going to need it to be async in a minute. So we're going to say get provider. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say provider.send transaction. So you can find all of this documentation for send transaction, the provider, everything that you saw here. It's all going to be in the Alchemy SDK. So we have AA Alchemy. You can find it on accountkit.alchemy.com. So specifically the send transaction method that I'm looking up right here. If we look inside of the documentation, we could see that it takes basic transaction arguments. You don't need to fill in everything here, but there's a lot more overrides that you can pass in, like gas parameters, things like that. Here, we're just going to pass in the 2 and the data. And the 2 is going to be the NFT that we just deployed, the NFT contract. And the data is going to be our mint function. We need to target the mint function. So let's go ahead and do that. So inside of my mint, I'm going to say provider.send transaction. And I'm going to say to the shrimp address. And my data I'm going to be lazy here and just come up with the catch-all hash of the method signature. So we have this method signature that's mint. If we just go look this up online, we could just plug in mint. And the way that the call data is actually formed is the first 4 bytes of the method signature is what you're going to pass in as call data when you are targeting specific method on the Solidity contract. So we're going to pass this through over here as call data. And that should be our call data. So that's all we need to do is we need to send to our provider that's already configured with everything we talked about in login. We're going to target that shrimp address that we just deployed, and then we're going to target the method, which, do I have the proper amount of bytes here? No, I did one too many. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and send that through. And then this should actually then just deploy the shrimp on chain. So let's go ahead and just await this and maybe console.log to make sure that everything is working properly inside of our game. Okay, so once we have that, I am just going to restart this, make sure that the reload is working here. And we'll go ahead and do this over here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, actually, let me take this over here because I think I already used that account. So I'm going to log in with Particle here, social login that's going to manage and create my the key through the MPC and threshold signature technology that Particle makes available for us. So I'm going to log into my ChainShot account over here, and I'm going to use that, and it's going to come up with an address. So this is the address from my smart account right here. So if we want to see whether the shrimps were minted to my smart account address, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Mumbai, Polygon scan, and go to this address right here. And right now there's nothing inside of this address, but hopefully what should happen is we should see these shrimps start to actually show up over here. So I'm going to leave my console open and see if we get that transaction back. Let's see if we get that in there. Okay, cool. So we got the signature here. It's coming up with a message that we get assigned. This is going to be the user op that we're going to be sending through. And hopefully we'll see a transaction hash in just a minute as it awaits. Sweet, there is one right there. So hopefully we'll see some shrimps showing up rather soon. Let's go get a couple more shrimps in here. So there's another shrimp. Here's another shrimp. Now, something in the game is maybe you could have something where it signs it automatically, right? Where we don't have to run around and keep doing that there. Here's a shrimp. All right, shrimp came through. So it's working over here. We're getting these shrimp passed through to our account. Our smart account is starting to get these shrimps in here. Something that we could do to make this maybe a little bit better on the user side is we could start to batch these user operations. So something that we are doing here when we are sending these user operations through, which you'll see in a moment, is we're sending them through to something that Tabasco mentioned earlier, which is called a bundler. And a bundler will take many user operations, put them in a transaction that then gets put on chain, right? So typically we think of a user sending a transaction, which is just one transaction in a block. But a user operations, you can actually have many user operations inside of a transaction, many transactions in a block. So in this case, what we can do is we could do something like, maybe we want to say, let's wait until there's been 3 mints, and then we will go ahead and mint ourselves 3 shrimp. So if we wanted to do something like that, we could say count is 0, and then we could say, you know, count plus plus every time, and if count is 3, then we could go ahead and mint 3 shrimp. So let's do that. We'll do this. But instead of doing send transaction, because we're going to be sending one of these every time, we could do something like this where we create a bunch of transactions, and we could go ahead and loop over that and send it as a batch. So we could say I is less than 3, I plus plus, transactions.push. All this stuff right here. We're just going to push in the shrimp address. We're going to push in the data. And then these transactions, we're going to send as an array to a method called, maybe you can guess it, send transactions. Cool. So yeah, and now we can actually wait until the user collects 3 shrimps and then send it over, right? I'd imagine you could probably come up with a better user experience for how these shrimps should be minted for your users if you're actually going to create a game like this. But this is a very basic demo. So we can come back over here to our game and just go ahead and re-log in here. Again, another user experience thing that you can make a little bit better is hang on to that sign in. And then hopefully now we can go ahead and grab 3 shrimps. Oh no. Okay. This is actually something that I think is going to get fixed in the latest version that didn't come out here. One thing that's we just got to pass in a gas parameter here. It's coming up with an issue, but I think this is fixed in the latest version. So we just got to do shoot, what are the gas parameters? Actually, we can see them in here. It's going to be max feet per gas and max priority feet per gas. So most of the time you won't have to worry about this. And you can see I didn't have to worry about this for not batching. In the newest version of the AA SDK, you will not have to pass in these gas parameters. That's just a bug for now. Okay, so I passed those in, and then, yeah, we should be able to do this again. So let me re-log in. And I'll go to this one. And we'll do 1, 2, 3. What happened? I could have sworn I fixed it. Dang. Okay. I'll give it one more try. Otherwise, we'll give up on batching. All right. 1, 2, 3. Bummer. Okay. Something going on there. I thought I knew what that bug was, but maybe not. Max. Oh, wait. It's max priority fee per gas. I did it backwards. Whoops. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, there we go. Sometimes it's a little victories, right? And so hopefully we'll be able to see this now as a batched set of user operations. That's probably going to take a few minutes to come through. This doesn't reflect right away, but you can see I've collected a few shrimp now. I got 2. I should have had 3. I don't know. I think maybe an error popped up for one of those shrimp. So something to look into, maybe like a nonce error or something like that. But there we go. Sweet. So there's our 3 shrimp that just came through in one transaction. So if we actually take a look at these, right? So now I have 5 shrimp. I just got these 3. They all came over inside of one transaction, right? So there's actually 3 user ops that came over inside of this one transaction. This cool thing about the bundler is we could put in many user operations inside of it, right? So this handle ops method is going to be something called this entry point smart contract, where you can actually send many operations through and it'll actually execute them all in order. So cool. So that is everything that I wanted to show on this. I will give you guys this repository in case you want to play around with it. Check it out, maybe add some more features to the game. And what I want to do now is just bring up a quick presentation and go through some of the things that I just talked about. So I have this presentation over here. That is our workshop marathon presentation. I want to break down ERC 4337, especially for our use case, everything that we were talking about just a moment ago. So there are 5 roles in ERC 4337. There's the user, the bundler, the entry point, the paymaster, and the smart contract account. 2 of these are keys and 3 of them are smart contracts. That's why I put those little emojis there. The interesting thing about account abstraction is we kind of like split the keys, right? With an externally owned account, typically you have a key that is doing both, it's doing the signature of the transaction, and then that's also going to reflect an address on chain that's going to pay for the gas. By splitting these keys out, we're actually taking those 2 responsibilities and making it so the user key here is going to be the one that we're going to authenticate within the smart contract account, but the bundler key is the one that's actually going to be the one that's going to be signing and sending the transaction through to the entry point. And then potentially the gas is going to be paid for by the paymaster smart account through some of the calculations that happen inside of the entry point there. So the state changes without account abstraction. When you're thinking about just an externally owned account, you just sign a transaction and you send it through to the EVM and you start making some state changes. when we want to start to actually move things on chain to create a smart account, we need to introduce something so that we can have something there in order to be able to have something programmatic to be able to program some of our rules. So what we can introduce is a smart contract account on chain. The trouble with having this smart contract account on chain is somebody still has to pay for the gas here. With an externally owned account, typically the externally owned account is the one paying for the gas. But if you have an externally owned account and a smart contract account, you end up holding gas in two places, or you hold your gas in one place and you hold your assets in another place in the smart contract account, right? So it's kind of annoying that you now have to pay for two different addresses in this case. So how do we avoid being the externally owned account? How do we avoid being the ones that have to pay for the gas and manage the gas within our externally owned account address? We can introduce something called a bundler, where you can pass over to the bundler the responsibility of actually signing the transaction to be sent on chain. So the bundler is actually going to hold funds that it can pay for the gas, although this is going to be reimbursed because the bundler wants to be a neutral piece of code. It doesn't want to be paying for the gas. We want to be able to have something on chain that's going to pay for the gas. So typically, what's going to happen is we need to come up with some way to actually calculate this gas. We need to calculate it on chain. So what we do is we put in this thing called an entry point smart contract, which is going to do the calculations of how much each user operation is going to cost in gas. And it's going to say, okay, smart contract account, you owe me this much. And if the contract has that much deposited on the entry point, then it's going to go ahead and run this user operation. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that in our game, the user could just run around and collect all those shrimps, right? When it's collecting all the shrimps, it doesn't have to pay for the gas. It's just signing something. So what we can do is we can introduce another party that's going to pay for the gas, and that is going to be the paymaster. So the paymaster, what it's going to do is it's going to deposit some funds on the entry point, and then the entry point, as it's taking in these operations, right? We saw we could send many operations to the entry point. It's going to take a look at these operations, and it's going to come up with the gas calculations to figure out how much each of these operations is going to cost. And it's going to ask the paymaster, hey, are you good for this user operation? Are you going to pay for this user operation? If a paymaster is designated. Smart contract accounts also can pay for the gas, so you don't have to use a paymaster. But if a paymaster is designated, the entry point is going to ask, do you want to pay for the gas for this? And then it's going to go ahead and do so out of its deposit on the entry point. So this, in essence, is ERC 4337. What I want to think about is maybe a little bit more specific to our use case. So in our use case, this is kind of what it looks like behind the scenes, right? We have Particle Auth that is doing the signing. So instead of the EOA, you'll notice that inside of my game, I'm not managing a private key, right? The private key is being created. This is being abstracted away from us thanks to the particle auth that we have here with the social login plus the MPC TSS. And then we have the Alchemy Runler, which is going to take the user operation from our game, and it's going to put these on chain. It's going to interact with something called the entry point, which is a neutral piece of code put on chain, which anyone can interact with this entry point, and most people will interact with the same entry point that's put on chain. And then we're using the Alchemy Gas Manager, as you saw, that we have the policy ID. We're reaching out to the Alchemy Gas Manager to say, hey, are you willing to pay for this user operation? And the server will actually respond with whether or not it's willing to pay for that user operation, which will be passed over to the gas manager when it comes on chain to say, yes, I'm willing to pay for this. And then the Alchemy Lite account is that smart contract account where we collected all of our shrimps on chain. So let's see it in the code. We saw all this just a moment ago. We can log in with Particle, and then we can have this EIP 1193 provider plus account abstraction where we could have the Alchemy provider all configured to talk to the Alchemy API to be able to do all of your typical RPC methods plus everything with account abstraction, as well as this policy ID so that you can talk to the gas manager here so that it can pay for your gas for this particular user operation. And then we have the connection piece, right? This is where Alchemy is able to talk to the particle signer where we can connect it. And this was what Tabasco was talking about a little bit earlier, mentioning this idea that we can just easily integrate here and just pass in using AA signers to be able to pass in particle as a signer. This is where we get this amazing experience where we can just log in with the social app and then be able to just send user operations over through to Alchemy. And then finally, we just say provider.send transactions and send them over. We encode some call data, and then we have our shrimps. Beautiful. Okay. This is a better way of maybe looking at it, just what we were looking at from the graph just a moment ago, where we have AA signers, which is going to allow from the account kit the ability to interact with signers such as Particle. And then we have AA Core and AA Alchemy, which is going to be your tools to be able to interact with these pieces here. The entry point, the gas manager for being able to pay for your user operations, but also interacting through the provider to the Alchemy bundler so that we can send some of those user operations through. And then we have this AA accounts, which is the account kits collection of accounts that we are putting out in Alchemy. Right now we have the light account. That is the one that we have out there. And then very soon we're going to be putting out the modular account as well. And this is going to eventually lead to the state changes that you want to do on chain, everything that you want to do. In our case, we want to collect shrimps with our game, right? So future components of AA SDK, the only thing we changed here from the previous slide to this slide is the or Alchemy modular account underneath the light account, where we could potentially install multiple plugins. So instead of making the state changes straight through the account, you can install these plugins, which are going to be additional pieces of code that could be coded by you. If you are a smart contract developer and you want to create a plugin, you can create one on ERC 6900. And a user can come in and install these plugins, and then through those plugins be able to make state changes and be able to validate user operations so that we can introduce all kinds of new user experiences to what we already have seen here. So that is everything in the presentation. I have some resources which I will toss out on the Discord. So if you guys want to play around with the game that you saw here, I have that GitHub repository. If you want to check out all of the different pieces that I talked about in the slides here, you can go to accountkit.alchemy.com. And if you want to use the auth tools from Particle to be able to do that social login, to be able to sign those user operations, you can go to this resource here as well at Particle Network with their account abstraction tools. Yeah, so that's everything.
Like session keys, right? So in that sense, like within that game, you could, for example, do all of that and the user would never know that anything's actually happening because it's all abstracted away. These transactions would be signed for them, but they're still happening on chain. This is where you get into that really interesting UX, right? Where you can now create these games, you're doing actions on chain, you're even batching transactions for gas efficiency and whatnot. And everything is abstracted away, right? The user has very little knowledge that this is actually happening. I think that's where a lot of this kind of cool value comes in. So I'm really excited for you guys launching the modular account and kind of implementing some of those features as well, and kind of course, giving those to developers as they build applications. I know what you said about gaming before you started the presentation, and I think gaming, as you saw within the, as you showcased within the example here, was and still is probably one of the best use cases for a lot of the kind of modern, implementations of account abstraction. So yeah, let's throw the links into the chat there. It's not going to let you do it on our Discord. So if you send that to me on in Discord DMs or on Telegram, then I will get it shared here on Discord. We get a lot of spam, so we have a pretty strict bot that just deletes everything. But yeah, if you send it over to me. then I will throw that in there. That way, everybody here in the audience can go through the GitHub repository. And then what we'll also do is kind of throw those into the description of the live stream as well, so we can have that available after the fact too. Perfect. Let me throw this into the chat. This is the GitHub repository. This is the account kit, Alchemy docs, and website. So you guys can learn more about all of that right there. The account kit documentation, from a firsthand experience working with it, is really good. So if you guys want to learn more about the ASDK, how it all works together, different functions, and even how you can use Particle Signer within the ASDK, those documents on the account kit page linked that I have in the chat are really good at kind of explaining that and guiding you through the process. So I definitely recommend that as well. And of course, the GitHub repository plus our docs, although we actually are releasing new docs in the next, like I mentioned, a week or so. I mentioned that way in the beginning of this workshop. So those will be temporary. Actually, if anybody in the chat wants to, I think this is a good opportunity to share this. If anybody in the chat wants to have like a written structured tutorial on how they can use Particle with AA signers, this is something that we produced recently. And this is a very long form tutorial that it's not live just yet because our new docs haven't gone live. But if you guys want, then that is the link right there. Full, like everything you can imagine, how to get started with Alchemy, how to set up a policy with your gas manager, how to create an API key, how to use Particle, all that stuff. So some really cool information there. I think there is one question in chat. It says, if you want to support some other chains outside of currently supported, can we make our own relay layers for those chains, or is it tough to do on our own? I think that was from Kamal in chat.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kamal. So to run your own bundler infrastructure is definitely something pretty difficult. It's definitely above my pay grade. So I would say that, it wouldn't be the easiest thing to do in the world, at least for bundlers. Yeah, so it really is something that, like, in a lot of cases, you do want to try to find somebody that supports it. Are there particular chains that you're interested in, Kamal? I'd love to see which ones you want to post in the chat there. But yeah, no, I wouldn't say it's super easy to do.
Here, I'm also going to throw a link if anybody's interested. This is Alchemy's open source bundler, of course, written in Rust. That's really cool. It's of course very high performance. We also have our own open source bundler implementation written in TypeScript. So I can throw the link in there as well. But we actually do see a few partners sometimes forking these implementations and they're running it themselves. Although that's when you start getting into infrastructure overhead and you have to run that yourself and maintain it. And that can be a little bit complicated sometimes. But we do see that happen every now and then. And typically, at Particle, we deploy infrastructure on different chains. It depends on the specific bundler that you're using in the paymaster. But if you want, then it's just like having a smart account implementation, having a bundler, and of course, in a lot of cases, having the paymaster there as well. So just a few deployments. I think is Light Account. Do you know every chain that Light Account is on? Is it on most kind of tier 1 EVM chains, or what's the network coverage for that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I believe it's every chain that we support, RPC wise. So I think tier 1 would be a good way to describe it, EVM chains. But yeah, maybe I can get that exact list for you.
For sure.
Be able to provide it.
What I'll also share with you guys real quick here, as I mentioned in the beginning, everything that you just saw was done through, of course, Alchemy's Light account. And at Particle, what we did recently was natively implement, let me share my screen real quick. We natively implemented Light account within our SDK. Right now, I'm going to quickly just show you guys through our interface. So we support a number of different smart account implementations. Of those, of course, Light account is now an option, so we can go down here, use smart account. As you can see, we have Economy, CyberConnect, and now Alchemy account, which is Light account. So we can select this. And you can, of course, use this and initialize this within our SDKs as well, so that you can natively leverage Alchemy within our kind of abstraction SDK or any of other infrastructure very easily. We automatically deploy the account. It all works pretty seamlessly, so that is an option as well. Just kind of another angle to potentially use Alchemy natively with our tech stack. Aeron or Berachain. Berachain is definitely a big one. We've been seeing a lot of demand for that recently. Any
Yeah, I have
plans for
seen.
either of those?
Not that I'm aware of, but I have been seeing a lot of Berachain stuff as well recently as well. Super cool.
Yeah, they've been crushing lately. I think the two big ones, I guess, over the past few weeks has been Blast and Berachain. They've been doing really
Mm.
well. So we actually just released support for Blast and Berachain, but not AA on Berachain. I don't know if there's a provider over there just yet. Um, but yeah, Blast is pretty cool too. It would be cool to see Alchemy's light account, some of your other infrastructure on those chains as well. But cool, yeah. Let me also throw, like I mentioned earlier, the some other bundler implementations. It's pretty interesting. Bundlers in general, if you guys do want to explore the idea of deploying the kind of infrastructure on other chains, then I'd recommend taking a look at the Rundler repository that I threw in the chat, or I will edit this message as well and throw this link as well, which is our bundler implementation. Very similar, but just a different language. Let's see. Never seen before how to create a wall just using the terminal without using the hard hat node. Does it work every time, or do you have a special tool to do that? Says Pinky.
Yeah, Kamal answered it. I was just using ethers there. I just required it. I did take a chance that I happened to be in the right environment that I was going to find it out in node modules. I wasn't sure that was going to happen. Fortunately, I guess because of where I was able to find it. I just required ethers and then used their wallet tool to chance that over. Otherwise, it would have been kind of annoying to go from private key to address right there.
Perfect. I guess, like, now that we've gone through that presentation and kind of understood everything about Alchemy's account kit, or your ASDK, and what how ERC 4337 works infrastructurally, for developers that are here live and that are also watching back at the live stream, that now want to get started using Alchemy and using your account abstraction infrastructure, what's the best way for them to get started? Where should they go? Where should they kind of start learning? How do they kind of get going with Alchemy?
Yeah, absolutely. So the account kit docs, like you mentioned, is definitely the best place to go as far as like learning about all this account abstraction stuff. Like they're just so well written. You can absolutely learn everything you need to learn in there. If you're looking for more general resources on ERC 4337 and maybe some of the more like just the high level overview of what I was describing there, we do have a recent series on YouTube, on the Alchemy YouTube, that I can link over here as well, where we dive into deploying your own entry point, well, deploying the entry point and then deploying your own smart account as well as your own paymaster, and then being able to tie that all together, interacting with a bundler on a test net. So it's like one of those things where you could do it all from scratch and understand how the components are interacting together. I found that to be a really useful exercise for myself when I was trying to figure out how all this stuff works. So I wanted to record it and make sure that everyone could try to do the same. So I'll link that out here on the Discord. Oh, well, I'll send it over to Basco.
Oh, good. I just threw
There you go. You got
the
the
channel in the
YouTube.
chat.
Sweet. Yeah, you should be able to find that on there.
Perfect. Yeah, there's a lot of really good videos. I was just looking through the catalog there. Definitely, if you guys want, that is a gold mine of solid content and related to this general topic. So perfect. Yeah. So the account kit docs, the YouTube channel, I think those are both amazing resources to get started. I think for everybody that is here live watching back at the recording, this was our final workshop in the Particle Workshop Marathon. It was basically just 2 or 3 days. We ran a few workshops with partners that are building infrastructure that enable this idea of next generation applications that take advantage of kind of cutting edge infrastructure to build things that can ideally push us closer to this idea of mass adoption. Alchemy is no exception to that. As you saw with what we just went through, the infrastructure here is great. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do with it, even with just light account as sort of a base account implementation. Batch transactions, gaseous transactions, there's a ton of really cool opportunity here. And then with modular accounts, like was mentioned a moment ago, this extends even further into things like session keys and even more programmability, which is awesome. And we love programmability. So in this sense, Alchemy was a very natural choice for us to have to close out the workshop marathon. For anybody that wants to watch the other sessions that we've done, earlier today, we did one with Biconomy covering session key validation modules based on another kind of similar idea of modular smart accounts. And then about yesterday we did one with Tycho covering layer 2 scalability, one with ZetaChain covering omnichain, and then before that we did one where it was hosted by me, where I kind of went through the process of managing inscriptions with Particle, how to get started with Particle, stuff like that. So a lot of really cool content here. This was like I mentioned, the last in this lineup, and I think it was the perfect one to close everything off, because I think it kind of gave a great rundown of everything and kind of the common denominator throughout these different workshops. So Dan, thank you so much for hopping in today. Really great workshop. Any last kind of thoughts or kind of key things to note from your end before we close it out here?
No, thanks so much for having me. I love everything that you guys are doing over at Particle Network, and really appreciate being up here and here with your community. So thank you all for tuning in.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So for everybody that is here, definitely make sure to go watch the YouTube video if you just joined or if you joined a little bit late. The link is right here in chat, as well as for all of the other videos that we have live as well. Beyond that is about it. Thank you everybody for hopping in today. Thank you guys for hopping into the previous sessions as well. And I guess that is about it. We will go ahead and end it here. Thank you guys.